Good evening. It is 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday, April 22nd, and this is I think the 14th episode of DMR Tech Net TV, where we try and explain DMR, make it easier to use, and demystify it. Tonight, we've got part two of our back-to-back topic week, and we've got Steve White N2RWE talking about APRS and his website, APRS.to. We started last night and we had so much stuff to go over. And we also had some technical difficulties, but hopefully we got a lot more time tonight. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Steve, who's going to talk about APRS, what it is, how it can benefit you, all the cool things you can do with it, his website, and any and everything with APRS. Steve, take it away.
Hey, good evening. This is November 2 Romeo Whiskey Echo, and my name is Steve. As Dana said, I have been a ham radio operator since 1992, so I'm getting up there with the old timers. I've done a lot, as many of you probably have, in various aspects of the hobby over the years. My first foray into APRS was, I think, 98 or 1999. I lost track of the year. And, it wasn't very interesting. It was kind of like packet radio. Packet was great if you had another node within range. And if it wasn't, it was useless to you. And that was kind of how APRS was, especially around here. And, I called up a friend. I said, hey, let's try this out. I sent him a message. He sent me a message. We did that a couple more times. And that was the last time we looked at it. And that was the last time I looked at it until 2002, 2022, during the pandemic, or right following the pandemic. I was really interested in DMR, and I wanted to get into DMR. So APRS and DMR kind of came back together with me at the same time. And I wanted a radio that could do both the DMR and APRS, and there's really only one out there that does, and that's the Anytone at the time. So that's what I picked up, and built a hotspot, got on DMR, started playing around with APRS over DMR, and kind of realized it wasn't very useful unless you're going to carry the hotspot out in the field and put it on your cell phone hotspot. So kind of started looking at more of the analog side of APRS, which is really what it was built on, and found that a lot had changed in almost 30 years. 144.39 had a lot of nodes in my area, and you can kind of look at, I have the map up in my particular
their own preferred version of reality.
So you can kind of see there's a lot of ground state.
He's president again, and Gore never was. Trump's living in reality.
Somebody that needs to
living in the White House.
There
we
go. Sorry about that.
No worries. So essentially, this is, I essentially said, okay, let's do analog APRS. APRS over DMR is fine if you're in your house. If you're going to send somebody a message or something, that's great, but you're really, the analog, the wider world. And then I also discovered around the same time that, guess what? APRS nodes are now connected over the internet. I literally had not followed APRS in a long time. So the whole IS, the internet backbone, it's something that had sprung up in the early 2000s. And it really, really took, like DMR, APRS to the next level, because now suddenly, if you're the only node in town, no big deal. You're connected over the internet. You can get your messages and all your telemetry and stuff to any node in the world. So it really did open up APRS. And then, of course, what's also helped the manufacturers. Kenwood's been a big supporter of APRS since the 90s. Yaesu, Anytone, and I think there's Retivus RT77. You can do APRS on that now. And I think actually Baofeng's got one supposedly that can do limited APRS, but it's everywhere now. So kind of what you can do with it, when you think APRS, what can you do with it? Everybody thinks, well, I can send position reports. Well, that's true. That's actually probably the biggest application for APRS out there, but it's not the only one. You can definitely send position reports, and I wholeheartedly recommend making that part of any SOTA or POTA activation. Activate on APRS. Advertise that you're there, and let everybody know, because there are, especially SOTA, a lot of sites out there that advertise activations that people can look up. So make APRS part of your activation. What can you do? Well, you can plot yourself on a map. That's the easy one. You can record tracks. So if you're hiking if you're on a SOTA mission, you can, hike, maybe if you're in range, record your entire hike. or beacon your entire hike so everybody in the world can follow what you're doing to your activation. But it's so much more than just that. You can send SMS messages. So if you want to send somebody a short message on APRS, get your HT out, your mobile rig, type it out, send it, use an app. There's a lot of great apps out there that you can send and receive messages on. Whole bunch of different things you can do. And if you don't want to message people, you can email them. There's an email gateway that you can sign up for, and you can send emails via APRS. Obviously, they're not going to be very long, but it's a quick and dirty, hi, I'm running late or something like that. No big deal. There is some limited text messaging. I know that there's been some issues with spam and stuff. So there are some gateways. I don't think they're available here in America anymore, but there are SMS gateways worldwide as well. If that's not enough, you can get weather reports. So if you have a radio that sends APRS that has a GPS, there's a bunch of different bots out there. You can send to a 4-digit or 4 or 5-digit address, and with your location in your message that your radio embeds, and you'll get the weather forecast for your area for 24 hours. So a lot of little cool stuff like that. But you can do a lot of other things too. And another application that is very popular are weather stations. You can see a lot of WX symbols here if you're looking at the screen share. Those are all weather stations. They're not all APRS necessarily over the air, but they're all weather stations that are using the APRS protocol. So if you want to send a weather station, have it available to all your fellow amateurs, you can do that. I have a perfect application for that because I have a remote property. Oh, there we go. We just saw a transmission happen in real time. I have a remote property up in the Adirondacks just north of this map. There's no electricity. It's completely off grid. So I have a set of solar panels and a battery, a 30-watt transmitter, and a small APRS, basically modem, I guess you could say, and then a weather station. So I get weather reports, and it also acts as a repeater up there or a DigiPeater for my APRS signals or anybody else that happens to be in the area. And I'll actually move my map up so you can see it. It's quite a ways up. And, where is it? It's not on the air right now. Okay, never mind. But it was there. It's the joys of a solar powered site. So you get a cloudy day, it disappears. But I can actually find it it hasn't been down that long because I was looking at it earlier. So we'll just plot that on a map. Yeah, it actually 20 minutes ago. So my map filter. So anyways, there it is right there. That's my weather station. And if I want to see what the latest weather was, I also got to go into here, hit weather, and there's my weather report. I like the 80s look here. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I can tell the last wind gust at 6:16 p.m. Eastern was, 2 miles per hour, 300 degrees, which is northeast, dew point, all that stuff right there for me. So if you want to make that available, or you can actually log that. And so if you have a weather station, you want to record your weather history, we actually record that here on the site, but I'll talk about that a little bit in a bit. Other application, telemetry. That's a big one here locally. People use the telemetry feature, one site in particular, to monitor their analog repeater site. So you can have 5 channels of analog telemetry, with temperature, humidity, just like you do with a weather station. You can have telemetry. This one doesn't do that kind of stuff because it's my DigiPeater, but I measure the voltage coming out of the battery so I can see what my battery voltage is, how many packets I've processed. I've had 200, so it's actually a really busy site. And of course, what the temperature, most recently logged temperature, which was 32 degrees. So I know people that do this, they're analog repeater sites to keep an eye on things. So you can use APRS for that purpose. So telemetry, weather, you can do obviously the messaging, SMS, emails, text messages, and of course, plotting yourself on a map. One of the applications here, we have a group again here in Syracuse, oops, got a little too carried away here. I'm going to refresh my map anyways, because I got a lot going on here. So one of the things, the site's going to be a little wonky right now at 8 o'clock from 8 to 8:15. There's housekeeping that runs because 8 p.m. Eastern is also midnight UTC, which the site runs off of. So after refreshing it, things are looking a little better. Only 8 o'clock at night. Anyways, but yeah, this DigiPeater down here belongs to one of our search and rescue groups here in the area. One of the things that they do when they do have an activation is they use APRS to plot their search teams on the map. So the coordinator can see that in real time or near real time, because you're not going to beacon every 5 seconds, but you probably transmit a location every couple of minutes. So in real time, you can monitor your team. Now we can actually, you can go into, a lot of granularity, obviously, if you are doing a search and rescue on the map. So there's really can zoom in and get some really fine detail. So if that is something that your group is or your club might be into, that's a great way to tie APRS in and actually do it in a practical way. So you can monitor things. And you can also, like on my site here, you can actually go back in time and pull up a map in a particular period of time and look at a particular activation as well. So those are some of the applications. Those are a lot of the applications, not the only ones, but that's a lot of what you can do with APRS. Another thing that I'm a horrible participant in because I'm always busy on Thursdays, but there is a net. It's called APRS Thursday. Actually, the information is right here on the site. If you're interested and you have APRS capable equipment, this is a great way for anyone that isn't APRS just to check out their station and make sure it works. That's what we're all about. It's all about being prepared, right? So this is a great way to do it. There's two ways to check in. There's essentially two different bots out there where you just send a very short, specifically formatted message. And this is, CQ space hot G space and whatever you want to say. Or there's another site here, you just send a message to hot G and then your message. And that essentially checks you in. So, and we track it here at APRS too, because I haven't, despite the fact I'm horrible at checking into the net on a weekly basis, I do support it. So this is last Thursday on the 17th, and these are all the people that checked in. We had just under 400 people participate, which is great. So again, it's a way to make sure your equipment is working, your messages are getting out, and you can also see if you've been acknowledged. Some messages don't get acknowledgments. That's a whole different topic in APRS alone. But you can make sure your equipment is working by participating in this net each week. Now, how do you get into it? That's probably the next most asked questions. Well, you got really two ways you can get into it. You buy a new radio, an Anytone 168, 878, or one of the Kenwood 74, 75. There's a whole bunch of Kenwoods. I mean, Kenwood's been supporting for a long time. The Yaesus, FT1 onward, and I think there's a couple oddballs out there in a Radiata. You might have one, Retivus. Or you go to a Hamfest, you buy an old radio. And when I say old radio, I have one. I don't have it here. It's in my RV right now. The Kenwood THD7A came out in 1999. That radio has a TNC, or terminal node controller, built into it. Has APRS support built into it. Doesn't have a GPS. You can't beacon a position. Although it does have a serial port, you could put an outboard GPS. But just by itself, go out to a Hamfest, $50, $100, whatever you happen to get. I got mine for $100 about 8 years ago. That's all you need. You put your static coordinates in. You can enter fixed location. So if you're doing an activation, just put your latitude and longitude in, transmits your location, your message. You can do APRS Thursday. You can do almost anything you can do on APRS on a new radio. It's built into that radio. And I actually didn't even think about that when I bought the Anytone. I kind of worked on that later. And that's how I built my DigiPeater. So we'll talk about that in just a second. But that, to get into it, that's all you need. You don't need to spend a lot of money. Chances are, if you have a radio made in the last 5 years from everybody except for the companies that starts with I, you have APRS built in, and you can do it right now. And by the way, I'm an ICOM fan. I have so many old ICOM radios, but I don't know what they're thinking. They're the only major manufacturer that doesn't do APRS. So the next challenge you're going to have is, okay, do I have coverage? Now, this map is very busy, but I want to just point out one thing here. I have 4 channels or data sources on APRS.to. There's the CB APRS network. That's in Europe. Believe it or not, in Europe, you can do APRS over citizens band. So they have their own FM citizens band, but they have their own network over there dedicated to APRS. It's like this is only the other site on the internet that does mapping, I think, outside of the main site. So I'm going to turn that off. There's nothing going on. We do show gliders, hobbyist gliders, balloons and stuff, but there's nothing going on here. So I'm going to turn that one off. The CWAP, this is the Citizens Weather Observer program. So if you're going to do an internet-based weather station, but you're not going to do it over the air, you're going to do it on that network. So I'm going to turn that one off right now. So what you see left on the map are honest-to-goodness APRS sites. It doesn't mean that they're all over the air, though. You can have in APRS 3 different types of items or stations. You can have a station, which is an RF station. You can have an object. An object is a marker. It's a virtual thing, or an item. We don't use items like we're supposed to. So object would be like a repeater. So if you want to advertise your FM repeater and map it on APRS, and you can see that. These are analog repeaters in my area. Some of the radios, if you format this string correctly here, your newer Kenwoods will actually QSY if that beacon happens to come up while you're traveling. So you can visit that repeater while you're driving without having to punch in any of that information. So that's one of those things you can do. Now, coverage. What do you do about coverage? Well, I kind of solved that. I'm still working on solving that because it's very computational and it does tend to throw errors once in a while. What I've come up with is there's an algorithm and it looks at the database of all of the recorded APRS activity for 7 days in a given map location, and it will plot the coverage over the air. Now let's see if this works. Yeah, it's kind of gonna do it. It's a little slow. So what it's doing is it's going out to all the different DigiPeaters and saying, okay, basically plot all the stations that I've heard in the last 7 days and draw a map. And we draw 2 different maps. So we have the polygon maps, which are the, okay, you might actually have coverage. And then we heat map it, which is, okay, these are areas or hot spots where you had a lot of APRS activity, which does tend to follow along interstates, for example. So if you look right now and it's still rendering, it's almost done. That this is we're very APRS heavy here in Syracuse and Central New York. And you can see where some of the hot spots are in the darker purples. You're probably going to be able to get out with your HT. The lighter purples or white areas, you ain't got a chance with a mobile or an HT. You're going to have to put up a base, and if you're going to want to do APRS. But here I can say, in these areas like the Syracuse area, we can zoom in and see that map and see those coverage. We're pretty dense here. I can actually go out. I do have an antenna in my house, but I can actually go for a walk around the block and beacon and have no problem. So we'll turn that off for now, just to declutter the map. So that's how you tell if you have coverage. If you have a particular station and you want to say, do I have coverage, or is that going to cover me? You can do the same thing just by clicking on the symbol, hitting coverage. It does the same treatment, but only just for one particular station. So it kind of declutters the map for you as well. This is a wide area digi here. It's not HT friendly, generally speaking. In a mobile though, you can nail all of pretty much anything in that polygon. The other thing we can do, there's a construct in APRS called PHG, power, height, gain. I don't have a lot of faith in that, but that's a very simple mathematical calculation based on transmit power and height above average terrain and antenna pattern and gain. That's essentially a very, very basic circle we draw that says, okay, this is your expected coverage. As you can see from this, when I did the comparison here, the expected coverage and the actual, and we'll do a full circle, they can be pretty close. It's actually, in this particular case, it's actually very close, right? So the calculated circle for this station is this one. The actual is this blue polygon here. So we can actually tell that, yeah, in some cases, PHG works very accurately. So we'll, again, declutter the map here. We'll get rid of all these, get rid of all these circles here. So that's how you determine whether you're going to have APRS in your particular area. Now, what do you need if you don't? How do you get started? How do you get coverage in your area? Because here's the funny thing about APRS. It's very unique in the ham radio world in that you can only get back or get out of APRS what other hams put into it. If they're not, the network is built by hams for hams, the IS servers, all the different APRS sites across the country and across the world providing coverage. So you're using a network built by other hams. And that's really unique. And I do HF. It's not, HF, you're just going from your station to somebody else's. So you're putting into it what you're getting out, what you put in, but APRS really turns that around. You can only get out what others put in. So if you're in an area and you don't have coverage, think about putting it up a site. If you want to try APRS out, put up a site. If you have an old antenna, an old J-pole you maybe built, it doesn't take a lot, put something up. What do you need to get into it? Well, let's circle back. I was telling you about that Kenwood D780 that I bought at a Hamfest like 8 years ago. That has a TNC built into it. So to turn it into a digital repeater or DigiPeater, all I need to do is put a Raspberry Pi on it and some a software package called Zaster, for example, that actually has drivers for that HT in it. You plug a serial to USB cable in, you set the HT up on a shelf with a high gain whip rubber duck on there, you can probably cover a mile just by doing that. Or put an antenna up on your roof, or take your little HT and your Raspberry Pi and put it up in your attic on a J-pole. It really doesn't take a lot. You can do another angle you can do. So that's how I built my first DigiPeater. I don't use it anymore, but as I was experimenting and learning, that's what I used at HT for an entire summer. You can take it a step further. And again, you don't need any high-end equipment. So my second DigiPeater, which I built in the house here, was essentially using, and don't judge me on this, I don't remember the model number, but it was like a $49 Anytone analog mobile that I bought off of eBay, and it was like 50 bucks brand new. And I just essentially took that speaker and mic connections into there's like I don't remember the name of these things. They're about 10 bucks on eBay. They're essentially matching transformers that bring the audio level down so you can put it into your Raspberry Pi without distortion. So $50 radio, $10 audio transformer board, and the Raspberry Pi 3 that I had lying around. So my home DigiPeater was built for about 80 bucks. So really doesn't take a lot of capital to build a DigiPeater. Now, my solar site, I take that kind of to the next level because that's out in the middle of friggin' nowhere. I can't get there 6 months out of the year without a snowmobile. I really want to keep that site as maintenance free as possible. So I don't want a Raspberry Pi. You all probably have had Pi Stars where the SD card is just crapped out on you because either you're powered off or something like that. Well, you don't want that at a site that's 2 hours away by car to get to. So there's other options out there, and there's a great company out there. He's out of Poland, and it's Microsat. He's got microcontroller, a whole array of microcontroller-based APRS stuff. They're not Raspberry Pis in shells with audio hardware. These are honest-to-goodness microcontrollers that run a very stripped-down Linux kernel. And they are just microcontrollers. You can power them on, power them off 300 times. They won't corrupt the memory because it doesn't ever write logs or anything. It doesn't mount any disks. They are truly microcontroller-based read-only memory devices that you program in Flash. So I have one of those up in my solar powered site. That raises the cost barrier a little bit. They're about $130 plus the radio. And for DigiPeaters, I like the Yaesu FT2500Ms, the mil-spec Yaesu that can do like 50 watts with the really heavy duty heat sink. And those work great for APRS because again, they're very low current, low standby current. So they also work great on solar power sites. You pair that with that microcontroller and you're maybe around $200, $250 for a dedicated site. That's something like a club would build. So if you've got a club and you want to convince your club or have your club build a DigiPeater, that's what you got to budget, about $250 plus an antenna. And I do know a few clubs, nothing locally here, but that actually have a very, very intricate combiner duplexer network where they actually add a notch filter for APRS and use the repeater antenna. So you don't even have to run the antenna. You just split it off, put a notch in, feed your APRS radio with it, and you're good to go. So a whole different levels of how to get into it, from your $50 to $60 HT base, $100, $150 for home digis, and then a couple hundred, $250 for a club. So really, if you want to get into it, it's not a lot of dollars. And you can even take it a step further. There's people that I know one guy that uses an old Yaesu FTM300 with a Raspberry Pi because the radio has the DigiPeater or has the APRS modems in it. It doesn't have the repeater capability. So a little Raspberry Pi W or something running that software, and there's a couple out there that can do that. Zaster being one of them. There's a couple others like Direwolf, one of the most popular ones. So whole different levels that you can actually get in and build your own APRS site. Now, from the other perspective is, what if I don't have a radio? What if I don't have coverage? I don't have the money to build a DigiPeater. Well, if you have one of these, a smartphone, you have options there too. There's a couple of great apps out there. For the iOS, there's only one that's currently supported right now, and that's the APRS.fi app. On Android, if you have an Android phone, there's a great app, and I got Dana to download it the other day. It's APRS Droid, not the one in the App Store. Stay away from that one. There's nothing wrong with it, but it hasn't been updated in a couple of years. The author kind of found better things to do. So another guy, Michael Phelps, he actually forked it, created his own version, and has been doing a lot of work to update it, to get a good UI on it. And it is a lot more user-friendly than it was. So if you don't have any radios, you don't have any ability to do APRS, but you have a phone, get the app. You can still send and receive messages. You can send position reports, all that stuff just from a smartphone. And
Steve.
Yes.
Steve, I'll post the link for that, but also you want to tell them Facebook groups that they have that
Yes,
have a
absolutely.
lot of good information.
Absolutely. So if you want to get into, especially APRS Droid, there's two Facebook groups. There's APRS and well, there's three actually. APRS users. They're both almost identical in what they talk about. APRS users is the guy Michael Phelps is a very active participant, and he talks about and supports APRS Droid there. So if you have the app, the APRS Droid app, you can actually get support there if you have some questions. And APRS is more generally speaking, there's actually a couple of guys in the APRS group that are writing apps right now for DigiPeaters and doing other stuff. So the big developer community right now behind all of that. So again, smartphone or laptop. If you got a laptop, there's a couple options there. APRS ISCE, that was a software package written by Lynn Deffenbaugh, just passed away, sadly, in December. So I don't know what the future of that's going to hold, but it is still out there and it's still up to date as of last fall. So very viable option for Windows. For Mac, there's an app called QTH. Great app, actually. I love it. Even though I have the site, I still keep it on my laptop only because it does a couple of things. I can connect straight to IS with it. I can troubleshoot. If I'm trying to troubleshoot my site, for example, and I want to make sure I'm getting the right data feeds, I can plot what's coming in off the IS. I can hook a radio up to it. It'll act as a portable DigiPeater. So a lot of stuff you can do with any of these apps. Back to the Facebook groups, the third one that I mentioned is APRS Thursday. So if you do want to participate in the net, there's also a group about APRS Thursday that can help you get started as well and help you get the initial setup of your site or your DigiPeater or your HT or your smartphone, whatever. They can walk you through all of that as well. So whole different ways to get into it. And it doesn't have to cost anything or very little to try it. And that's really the nice thing. It's kind of like Echolink in a way. You know, you have an app for Echolink and you can hit a lot of repeaters with it without even having that on the radio. So anyways, now you're on APRS. So we've gotten to this point. You're on APRS. How do you make sure it's working? How do you check it? How to, right? The biggest frustration I have with APRS to this day, although it is getting better, is there's no centralized information repository of how do I do this? How do I do that? Go to YouTube. There's a lot of people on YouTube that have different videos. I think really the best group I've seen so far is the Bridgecom folks, especially if you want to do DMR, APRS on DMR. They've got some great how-to videos on that. There's really no centralized repository. Try getting a symbol, for example. There's 20 different websites that have symbol tables to how do you pick whatever symbol you're going to want to show on the map or to another radio. And they all document it differently, so you're left scratching your head as how do I figure this out? So this is where my site came in. I took all of my frustrations back in 2022 with, oh my God, how do I figure all this out? How do I do symbols? How do I get coordinates? How do I just do static coordinates on my first DigiPeater? Because there's how many different coordinate systems out there, right? There's a lot. In one particular software package, like Zaster, uses a different coordinate format than Direwolf. So what the hell do you do with that, right? It's very, very frustrating. So one of the very first things I did when I was taking the site, and I'll talk a little bit about the history, but it was really to come up with a way to make it easier for new people to get in, to find information, to troubleshoot, and to learn because it's just so obscure. So for example, using my coordinates frustration when I was trying to set up Zaster, I can go to a map. I can find myself. I have no problem. I know where I live, right? But, you've all seen different coordinates. There's, DDMRS, there's NMEA, and there's a whole bunch of others. What do you do? So I solved that one very easily. Go on a map. On my map here, find any particular place you want to get coordinates. I'll pick the high school here. And you right click. Little pop-up menu comes up, says get coordinates. You click on that. There's all your major systems right there for that particular location. No calculations, no converters, no nothing. We have all of them. We have degrees decimal, we have unsigned, we have DMS, DDM APRS, which there's really no name for that format. I kind of coined that. And then we have NMEA, of course, which is your raw GPS format. So right there, no calculations. You don't have to find a website to do the conversion. It's just there. And the best part about it is if you go into any on this map here, any symbol, you pop up anything here, you click on the top, that brings up the information window for that particular station. Anytime you see a globe, anywhere's on the site, that's going to bring up that same converter with those coordinates. So you don't have to try to struggle how to figure coordinates out, which I'll tell you, I did. The second piece of the struggle is how do you frickin' pick a symbol? because there's alternate table, primary table, secondary table, alternates, overlays, your head explodes. I'm working on a tool to make that even easier. It's not going to be ready till probably fall. But in the meantime, if you're on a map and you want a symbol that if you want one of these symbols here, for example, or we have a car out here. So here's a car here's one of the car symbols moving around right now. So you want your packet, your station to have a symbol that looks like a car. Well, we can just copy here. We can go into the station details, and when that comes up, here you go. There's your table and there's your symbol code. So you can just punch that into your APRS software and it will make that work for you. By the way, this guy's using the APRS Droid. So there's another plug for APRS Droid. So just a couple little things right there just to help make the entry point into APRS easier. Not, whether your station is working or not. That was another frustration. Am I getting out? So you've probably seen in here in the map as I've held it on, every once in a while, you'll see a line draw, right? This is real time. So this is tied into the internet. This is tied into the IS feeds. So there you go. You just saw that right in the center there, you saw some radio lines. That means that station just sent a packet out to the internet. You didn't see a line draw on the map, but you saw the animated symbol, which means that station just sent a packet. You've also seen these lines draw, and I can hover over it to cause the redraw. But if you see these lines draw, that is saying, here's the direction that packet took. So we'll just bring the map down. So this particular station just transmitted to a station just south of Cortland. And it works for multiple hops too. If there's a station that has more than one hop, I don't have a lot of activity here this evening. Let's see if there's anything down in New York City. Not so much, but if you hover over any of the symbols, you'll see the path a particular packet took. Sometimes you'll get more than one hop. Sometimes you get 3, 4, even 5, which is very common out west in the Rockies where the DigiPeaters are really far apart. Here in the urban areas of the East Coast, not so much. But again, from a troubleshooting perspective, you want to see what direction your packet is. There you go. You just saw a couple happen right in real time. So you have your HT in front of you, you transmit. If you're on the Anytone, you hit the F2 key and it'll beacon manually for you. And you look at the map. Well, did it transmit? Did I not see anything happen? Okay, if I didn't, now what do I do? So another thing you can do. So here's another station up. There's another one just transmitted. So there's a facility right here. There's a couple of facilities that I've added here. So this is the first one. This is your path quality. So that's saying, okay, how many hops did it take? This obviously this particular station is a direct connect, but that means it's connected to the internet. So it didn't actually have to go over the internet. There's a car. Let's pick this car here. There we go. There's a 2-hop right there. So he hit a DigiPeater. The DigiPeater hit a gateway. So essentially a DigiPeater is an RF only construct. It takes a packet in, transmits it out over RF. A gateway or an iGate takes the RF packet and sends it to the internet. So that's what we're seeing. We've got a 2-hop transmission, hits a RF only DigiPeater that then hits a gateway. So you can see that visually just on hovering that line. We can also bring up the station information, and we actually have 3 hops on this one. So there must have been a newer packet from the one we just saw. But essentially it's saying, hey, wait a minute, this station just had 3 hops. And you can see it. Here's the first one. There's the second one. There's the last one. So it went through 3 different stations before it hit the internet. That's actually not bad. It's not red. If there were 4 hops or 5 hops, my little bar graph would turn red and say, hey, wait a minute, you got a coverage problem. And then the second thing that we do to try to help you out is we do a quick analysis of 7 days worth of history. And we look for things, or the site looks for things, bad packets, malformed packets, broken packets, any parsing errors. And if it comes across anything, it will tell you right here, you've had 3 bad packets, 5 bad packets, or a couple other conditions it will flag. This particular station, perfectly healthy, no bad transmissions or anything like that. So a couple tools to help you determine, whether your station is operating properly or not. Another thing, if you, on my site here, you want to sign up for an account, and I guess I'm having email problems again, so if you are, let me know, please. We have a thing called My Stations, and essentially that looks at all the SSIDs, all the system IDs that you've assigned radios to, and it will bring it up here on a grid so you can do a health status check on all the different SSIDs you transmitted on. Black is dead, dormant. Red, it hasn't been heard in less than a week. Amber is less than a day, and anything green, yeah, it's transmitted in the last 4 hours. So I know my N2RWE 13, my remote DigiPeater, is perfectly healthy. N2RWE 10, that's actually an object right now. I have another Catskill Mountain repeater, that DigiPeater that I set up in the summer. I place an object for the winter so people don't think it's gone away. And I actually, it says see you in spring. But when that is operational again, I'll turn that off and I'll monitor that station. Then I got a bunch of HTs that I use. My home digi is here and a couple of HT. I was just out walking last night with my N2RWE-8 HT. Now, I assign SSIDs to 3 handhelds because I have an RV, a camp, and my house. And those HTs are usually assigned to those particular locations. So anyways, that's you sign up for an account, you can actually monitor all of your stations in one particular spot here. So another great troubleshooting tool. So you got your HT, you've got your coverage, you've got your coordinates, you got your symbol, you're getting out, you verified it on a map. Now, what are you going to do? What can you do, right? So we talked about weather. I'm going to go back here to my weather station for a second. So if you want to set up a weather station, what is some of the value in that? Well, so I'm going to pick my house weather, or excuse me, my house weather station is not connected to the DigiPeater. Let's go back up to my other one here. So we'll bring that back. So for example, weather. I want to set up a weather station. So you can actually take this. We have a nice gauge view, which is a little more, I think, a little more practical. I know at least one person that has taken this page and put it up on a Raspberry Pi and has made it part of his ham shack. This is a live updating screen here. So as the next transmission comes out of my weather station, these gauges will update and my weather forecast will stay current. So that's, you want to do a weather station and you want to be able to see it. You don't have to worry about internet connections or anything like that. Set up a remote weather station. And I'll give you another nice piece of hardware, again, from Microsat. It's called the APRS Voyager. It's a little pricey. It's about $250. It's the size of a pack of cigarettes. It's a 7-watt transmitter and an APRS modem and a DigiPeater and something the size of a pack of cigarettes. You can marry that to your weather station out in the field. Throw a 100-watt solar panel on it. You can put a weather station anywhere. So another great example of what you can actually do. And of course, we also do the graphing. So if I'm a weather buff, which is one of the reasons why I built all of this stuff. I can actually look at the performance, or not performance, but the weather history, and I can select periods of time. If I want to do graphs for over a period of time, we do as well as humidity, dew points, pressure, wind speed, and all that stuff's all right there for you. So if you're into weather, all those graphs are right there for you. And of course, I also said telemetry. So we can do the telemetry, whatever you want to monitor your site, your analog repeater, whatever application you come up with, you can transmit. If you can get it into data, you can get it in analog or digital data, you can transmit it and do it over RF. And then back to troubleshooting for a minute. One thing I did forget is you can actually go in and look at the raw packets for your station. So if you're really trying to figure out what's going on, why is this not working? Why is my weather report all messed up? We have a nice facility right here that you can actually look at the raw packets. So these are, like, for example, this is a weather report. And yes, I've stared at these packets long enough to tell you I can decode these pretty much with my eyeballs now. It's pretty sad. But, these are your coordinates, your symbol table, your symbol codes, all that stuff is right there. And we can also decode that. So we can change that to decoded view. And there we go. We're going to take all those packets and we're going to actually decode them. Or if you're looking at a particular item, this little thing right over here. So we have, as of this spring, a new tool. It's a packet decoder. You can copy and paste a packet from anywhere. Your software, before you even transmit it, to make sure that raw packet is good. It's an excellent troubleshooting tool. And this is the decoder right here. So there's a hyperlink in the raw packets view that I was able to bring that packet up and decode it. But you can actually just paste something in that you find anywhere if it's out of software. So if your APRS software is showing you a body packet like Direwolf does. So Direwolf, you build the body packet without the address. You just do packet body only, throw your body packet in there and it'll decode it. It'll make sure your beacon is going to be good. Your message is going to be good if you're sending out a 30-minute message from your DigiPeater. So it's a great opportunity to troubleshoot a message before you even transmit it. So, and then on a station level too, if you're having issues, we also have a facility for raw packet view and live packets. So right now, this is listening in real time for any transmissions from that station, any packets originating from that station. If that station sends a beacon, it will appear in that list in real time. Unfortunately, that's a DigiPeater, so they only beacon every 60 minutes. This car here might be another, I don't know if he's still moving around, but another possible way. But anyways, if you got your HT in front of you and you're trying to transmit and it's not getting anywhere, this is another way to just look at that raw data in real time. So that's one thing. And I talked about APRS Thursday. So if you want to participate in APRS Thursday, which here's the instructions, the check-ins, we also have a leaderboard and stuff. But on a personal level, again, if you have an account, we actually have APRS Thursday profiles for people. I'm not on myself here. This guy doesn't participate, so let me get in as myself. Oops, hang on a second. Let me bring that back up again. Oh, I haven't. I'm a bad boy. If you haven't checked in 30 days, it doesn't show you your profile anymore. I guess I'm a bad person, aren't I?
Fired.
I gotta check in more. Oh dear. Anyways, you can actually see your profile. You can see all your check-ins by SS. I'm going to check in tomorrow. I'm going to actually make a note of it. Your SSIDs, your number of check-ins, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I'm gonna fix that. I'm kind of embarrassed right now, especially being a supporter. But anyways, if you log in, another couple of things you can do with the site here. If you do want to create an account, you can personalize the map. So I told you, we got all these data sources. You can show or hide these data sources as soon as you log in, so you're not buried with information. Markers, you can change the marker text. You can make it bigger. So if you like me, you've got eyes that aren't as good as they used to be. You can set locations. So you basically can personalize everything. But we also have a couple other neat things that made a debut this spring. So we have some additional map overlays. So if you're like me, you sometimes do train spotting, I actually have a real up-to-date railroad map that shows all the active and some of the even abandoned or inactive but not abandoned lines. There's other, biking, hiking, you can bring those maps up as well and very easily make those presets so they're always there. A couple other things that are very useful here is we do have Maiden Head. So as the map changes, your Maiden Head grid, we can actually throw that on. That's an interactive grid. So as I zoom in, the map will just keep refining itself and it will go up to 10 places. So that's pretty high resolution. You can actually go up to 16 places, I think, but by that point you're mapping your TV set in your living room. So Maiden Head grid, and the other one, y'all have myself. I don't have one, but a lot of you have ham clocks. You want to see where the nighttime, daytime coverage is. That's actually available as well here on our tools menu. So we can show, where is it here? It's there, I promise. Sure. Oh, I moved it. That's right. So we can actually show that right now. So we're in nighttime, but obviously if you were in daytime, and that actually draws in real time. So as I zoom out here, we can see, again, as you move the map around, that updates, and we can actually turn it on and make it real time, and we can watch that map that draw itself across to real time. So if you'd like to keep that online, and we can also throw the Maiden Head on. So there's a whole bunch of different overlays that you can do as long as you got enough horsepower on your PC. It will do all that for you. And like I said, we can do railroad maps, hiking maps, all that stuff is available. I'm going to reset this and I want to show a couple other things, and I guess we'll take some questions at this point. So let's just reset the map. And I'm going to go back home. So you click this will take you back to your starting point. Now, another thing, if you log in and you're moving around, you're on a road trip and you want the map to follow you. So all you got to do is go into your map settings, and we can turn on track my location here. We're just going to do that right there. It's going to plant a marker on the map. We'll save this and we'll close it, and it's going to make a liar out of me, but that's okay. I'm used to that happening. So we'll just refresh it and then it'll draw. There we go. So that's where I am right now. If I move, and you notice my icon here in the left is turned red. If I'm moving in my car, that marker is going to follow me. So I always know where I am relative to the map. The map will center on it. So it's a great way to keep the map moving along with you as well. And then I guess a couple other things. So, from a training aspect, again, there's a lot of other things. We talked about coverage maps. We talked about the decoders and stuff. Well, one thing I forgot to mention. So if you want to connect You want to connect your Android, your Android app, or your DigiPeater, your iGate. You want to get into the IS network, you're going to need a passcode. And that was another challenge when who do I trust for generating passcodes? The reality is it's just an algorithm. And there's a lot of sites that do passcodes. I'm just another one. But anyways, you can just come in here. There's a passcode generator. You put your call sign in, and guess what? You can come in here and put anybody's call sign in and get their passcode. So it's not exactly high security. That's your passcode for connecting to the IS network. So you put your call sign in, no SSID, and that's your passcode. Put that in your internet software, your DigiPeater software, iGate software, and that will allow you to connect to the IS network. So again, another one of those things that just from a training perspective made things so much easier having all that in one spot. And then the last thing is just kind of a new thing right now is I'm starting to build a resource page. So right now I've only got two. These are folks that are willing to link to my site that are offering something for the APRS community. The AT Golden Packet Group, great bunch of guys. I'm hoping to help them out this summer for the event. If you're not familiar with it, check out their website. The idea is to push APRS to its limits by sending a RF only packet along the entire Appalachian Trail from the south all the way up to Maine. And then if you're into weather stations, this guy here has coded a brand new script here. I think it's in Rust. He's got a weather, it's basically, or excuse me, C99. It's a weather station app. You don't need Direwolf. You don't need a lot of software. It will literally do it all for you. It's a very simple script that'll connect to your weather station and send that out over APRS. So a couple of resources there as you're getting started. And there's a whole lot more here I could cover, but some of the last couple of things, again, if you want to set up an account, here's a couple of great things that you can also do. And I think this is a big one right now is you can take a snapshot of the map. So any particular point in time, whether you're doing let's say for example, the Appalachian Trail event in July, or if you're doing a POTA activation or a SOTA activation, you can actually, if you can map it here, you can save it and you can recall that map later, or you can save the map and send it to somebody else and have them follow you. And lastly, and I'm afraid midweek here, we don't have any summits on the air. I don't think. I'm looking right now. I don't see any right on the map. Oh, we do. Here we go. There's some, I'm a big believer in SOTA. I actually bought an ICOM 705 3 years ago with the intention I was going to do a lot of summits on the air. I haven't done a freaking one yet because I spend my life doing APRS now. But if you're in the summits on the air and you see they use a very common symbol, so it's easy to spot on the map. We actually have some integrations here. So there's a bunch of SOTA sites. You can check out any of these links for that particular activation, get more details on the park, who's going to be there, what time they're going to be there, all just from a simple app, a simple link. And then you probably already saw this on my station. I'm also a big supporter of DMR. I'm a big believer in DMR. So if a station is a DMR user, we'll show their IDs over here. And you can reach out to them over DMR. And that's, there's a lot of other small things here, but I think I want to leave some time for questions. So hopefully I haven't talked too long on you guys tonight.
Not at all. APRS is fascinating. And none of us know enough about it. That's why, Steve, you're here. Typically with the questions, I always like to ask the co-founder of the DMR Tech Net. That would be Tom, N8TJ. I actually featured his home on your map. I went to APRS.to. Tom, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself if you guys have questions, but let me go with Tom first and see what's on his mind about APRS.
Oh, very good, Steve. Thank you. It's amazing. I've been looking at it for a few days now, ever since I learned about it, a week or two ago. The graphics are so much better on this. The detail is so much cooler. The grid squares is really neat, and the menu layout, very good work on that. The previous APRS site that I looked at everything was crowded over to the right. Remember that? And then the symbols were overwhelming. You said that, and that is the truth. The symbols are overwhelming. They're all little text symbols, and you have to go down and look it up. It's a great big document. So just from that, it's great. You said SOTA on the air. Is there POTA on the air too, right? I mean, there's parks too. We can do that. I mean, we don't have summits in Michigan, really.
Yeah, you can. Here's the thing, though. The Summits on the Air group is very big on sharing their information. Not so much with Parks on the Air. There's been some discussion on, because essentially all the SOTA activations are mapped by one individual that's created an APRS gateway that takes the SOTA activations and throws them out as APRS packets over IS so they can be mapped. The POTA group doesn't really have that ambition to do that. I don't know if they see it as competition for their site, their mapping sites, which is unfortunate. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it yourself. You can absolutely do it yourself. You can create a
Why
beacon
not? Yeah.
and just throw it out there. And that's very easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. That I'm definitely a outdoor enthusiast also. And I got the same ideas, some equipment that I want to head out with. And it's fun to be able to tell everybody where you are. I also just use it for position reporting. And that's why I saw, oh, look at all the bike paths that I ride on are on this map, which is kind of fun.
We have a big one around here, actually.
We have a ton of them here in Oakland County, great bike riding paths. And they're all pretty, I've got a few hams that DigiPeater around me, very, just by luck from my house. And so I think I could go a long ways and be able to report my position, which I have done. I have a Yaesu radio in my truck, and it kicks out an APRS signal. That's what Dana, I think, was copying. I haven't done it in a while, but now that summer's here, it's kind of APRS season. Summer is.
Absolutely.
And so in any case, it's really cool. It is a version better. It is a major upgrade with this reporting than what I've seen for however many years now. So it's very cool.
Yeah, sadly, and I just want to throw this out there. And I'm not happy, but I had to. So we actually, I've been storing. I was storing packets for about 2 years. I had to flush the database back in March because we were just running out of storage. And some background on this site actually runs on a cluster. So there are 5 servers that power different components on the site. One of the reasons why the data comes up so fast most of the time is because it is distributed computing. But unfortunately, I was at almost 4 terabytes of SSD storage tied up for this, just one instance of the database. And it just wasn't, honestly, I'd either make an investment or say, okay, we're going to flush it, start over again. And, hopefully in 2 years, I'll have storage will be more affordable. So unfortunately, the database only goes back to early March now.
Okay. Steve, Stan and I were talking this morning, and we could see airplanes on the map. And also, I've seen in the past where you can see boats, but I didn't see any boats today when I was looking.
Yeah, boats, I don't have AIS. I know there's when I was talking with the ATGP folks, there's a gentleman there who was going to hook me up with AIS to add shipping. So anything you have now is probably just recreational, that if you see somebody activating onto their boat. I did mention the glider network at the start of the presentation. So the main reason I support the glider network is because we have just to the west of us, a couple hours in the Ontario area of Canada, huge glider community. You can see it right here, for example. A lot of activity going on right now. And these are all either hams or non-hams. They're not necessarily hams doing it, but they're all participating over essentially a private network called the OGN, or Open Glider Network. So it's very fascinating to map that.
I saw a vehicle. I saw a glider on the map around Detroit following the freeway.
Did you really?
So that would have been some guy just running the glider app from his car, I'm sure.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean, it followed every curve, and I said, that's not a glider, that's a vehicle. But it was pretty wild.
It is. And I love watching this stuff here. I'm surprised they're that active this time of night, but
that was the other day I saw it.
So that's one thing I support. I just do it for my own. The glider stuff is there just for my own interest. That's purely, there's other sites that map that, but I find it fascinating.
Hey, Steve, before we take questions, Rick was asking a question earlier, 88KN. We were looking in Michigan at some of the lakes, and we found a site out in Lake Huron. It wasn't an island that we could tell. Rick, you wanna go into that one in detail?
Oh, There's one right there.
Yeah. What exactly is that?
That is somebody that doesn't know how to put coordinates into their site. That's exactly what happens when you do your coordinates wrong. And this is, I can tell right now, this is a hotspot. And you can, the hotspots will all identify themselves. PyStar specifically has a very specific format. So you, again, QSY format here. Actually, it's not QSY because it's got some bad characters, but it's a hotspot and somebody didn't put their information in correctly. So when you see that 99% of the time, which is again why we, let's make it easy.
In fact, that was the spot we were looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. That can happen to anybody.
Who else has a good question for Steve tonight about APRS? You can raise your hand or go ahead and speak, Stan.
Well, just a question. I'm in a little packet radio guy. I was doing stuff long before APRS came along. Enjoyed it, ran nodes, ran all kinds of things. APRS came along and it was great for tracking and whatnot. And they said you can do everything on APRS you could do on packet. And people never went with it. What's your experience with people? Are they doing keyboard to keyboard? Are they doing messaging? Or is this just something that exists, but we don't use it?
So I can actually answer that by showing you something here. So these are all the latest messages sent to and from stations. It's kind of a slow report, but yeah, is it a primary mode of communication? Absolutely not. But here's a list. Here's some right here. So some of this is telemetry. Some here's a couple actual messages to people that somebody sent between two stations. So is it widespread? No, probably not. Same with packet. But it's funny you mentioned packet. We're lucky here. I've got two packet nodes that also, because you can put your packet node up here, make it available, make it known. We actually have two in our area right now, which is more than we had in the 90s when I was playing around with packet. My feelings overall, though, and I kind of tip Dana off, I don't want to offend anybody, but there's a lot of fragmentation in APRS right now, and it's a good thing and a bad thing because people are playing with it, right? But APRS over DMR, in my opinion, is pretty much useless because you're not going to track your location if you're tied to a hotspot. Chances are your local DMR repeater doesn't allow for APRS messaging because they don't want to tie up the repeater for that. So you're kind of stuck doing your hotspot. But again, if that's your entry point, if that's the best APRS tools are the ones you have. So if that's your only way to get started, that's great. I take a different view. I believe in full power FM stations. We got to keep that spectrum in use. The analog repeaters are dying. FCC, we're not going to, as a ham community, convince the FCC not to take our spectrum because we want hotspots. They'll just tell us, hey, you're a secondary licensee now. So I believe we can't all keep the FM repeaters busy. Let's keep FM APRS busy. Let's get more applications out there on 2 meters, 143.439, on 70 centimeters, and 448.8, I think is the frequency. Let's do that. I know there's a group that also does it over HF. Now, to me, it's great. They try it out, experiment. 300 baud over HF is useless. It's more useless than 1200 baud. We also don't need any reason to keep the HF bands busy. They're busy all the time lately. So I'm a purist. If you want to do APRS, try to do it over 70 centimeters or 2 meters. Let's just keep those bands hopping.
That's good to know on that one. Before I go to Jeremiah, I think you had a question. One of the labels we saw in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan said flood.
So yeah. So it's probably local. Although I think it could be from FireNet. I know there's another network out there called FireNet that Lynn was part of. But there are some folks. I have there's a guy here in New York that does it, that actually scrapes the National Weather Service alerts and maps, places symbols that could be fire. You see a lot of that out, fire, flood, and ice, hail. There's symbols for all that. And they'll place that at different parts on a map where maybe a road is closed or flooded. And that's essentially done. That's one or more hams that say, hey, I want to make this available in my area. And they scrape those data feeds, feed it out to the internet, the IS system, so sites like mine and other sites can actually map it. And if you're local in that area and there's a DigiPeater, they might broadcast, they might beacon that, so you get that alert on your radio as well.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. Thanks for answering that. Usually Dave or Jeremiah has a question. Jeremiah, did you have one?
Oh, actually, a question and a comment. Thank you for everything you've done to give everything a refreshed look and make things a lot easier to navigate. I know it's got to be time consuming, so thank you for all the effort you've put in. The question I've got is, I noticed that different radios have different two calls. Like the Anytone 878 is APAT 81 and 51 for the 578. I don't think I've seen one for the 168 yet because it only does analog transmit on APRS. But it doesn't do receive on APRS. But I was wondering if you know who decides what two call goes with what radio manufacturer, or if there's a master list where people can look up to see what their two call is when they're setting up their APRS settings.
There's actually, that's an excellent question, Jeremiah, and there's a two-part answer. So originally, Bob Berninga, W9APR or W9APR, he used to manage that list until he passed away a few years ago. The foundation is trying to take that over, but right now there's a link that I can send you. Trying to think, it's a GitHub link where you can submit a pull request to get a two-call assigned. So if you're a radio manufacturer like Anytone, you can get a two-call assigned. They probably should have one for the 168. If you're transmitting, you should have a two-call. So absolutely can do it. And there's, I don't know the process by what it goes through. I just helped somebody else with that link so they could, who was writing an app, so they could get their app approved and get a two-call assigned. So I can, Jeremiah, if you want, I can send you that link too after the show.
Okay. Yeah, because the most common thing I get doing tech support for Bridgecom is got to be, how do I get my APRS working? It's not showing up on APRS.fi or APRS.to. And it's always the path. 9 times out of 10, they have the bandwidth set to narrow, and they have the path set to wide 1-1, no comma, wide 2-2.
That'll get you.
Or wide 1-1, comma, wide 2-2. And the only time I've ever gotten it to work on my own radios is using wide 1-1, comma, wide 2-2, 2-1.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I've ever gotten it to work on my own Anytone radios. And I'm wondering if you know of a specific reason why there's that wide 2-2 that people keep throwing up they've seen in YouTube videos when they try and say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, I know this works on my radio.
The whole path thing is a bit of a mystery, even to me on some level, because essentially what your radio is going to start with the one on the right-hand side, 2-1, and it's going to decrement that counter. So it's going to go, every hop is going to lower that counter until it gets down to 1-1. And then essentially is a keeper time clutter. It's basically defines how many hops that transmission can take before it's dropped. And that's, and honestly, Jeremiah, the answer to that question is really region dependent. So if you're out on the West Coast and you've got a mountaintop digi with supporting 300 square miles, you probably just want 1-1 or maybe 1-2, because that's going to repeat too many times. But local clubs are always the best source of information for that, if there's any specific guidelines for a reason. Back on the two-call, the two-call thing for a second. Two calls really are irrelevant. You got to have one. The spec says you got to have one. But when you're transmitting to an individual, that two-call is really it's their call sign. The two-call is just a way of identifying the radio that's originating the transmission. It's kind of the whole APRS, the APRS protocol was actually designed for commercial use, and that's why the two calls actually exist. So you have to have them, but they're more or less irrelevant. You could pretty much put anything. There's the DigiPeaters, the gateways don't filter anything based on two call, other than maybe to block one if there's one causing a problem.
Hey, yeah, Steve, we're past 9 o'clock. Are you okay going longer?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. And Jeremiah, do you want to follow up?
One last thing. Using the hotspot, for digital APRS. I actually, on my way from California moving out to Massachusetts, I had 2 different hotspots that were set up in my car. And I was beaconing the whole time over Brandmeister through my hotspot. And it's a very interesting and also concerning thing when you get text messages saying, why are you moving at 93 miles an hour? It's like, I was trying to pass a line of semi trucks. How do you know this? And you forgot your APRS was turned on. So
Somebody's watching.
Here, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Jeremy. I don't know if you ran into this, but there are some folks, I haven't personally witnessed it either, but I've heard others that do it, that actually have their own bots set up on their stations and will actually send you a welcome message if you're new to the area and your call sign hasn't been recorded. They'll send you a welcome to the area. Reach me on, whatever 144.6 or no, I got that one wrong, but yeah, they'll just whatever frequency they'll monitor is just kind of a way to welcome somebody to the area.
That's cool.
Okay.
Dave N8SB always has a question, a good question from Ann Arbor. Dave.
Yep. My question is, do you also track WindLink position reports?
WindLink is not part of the APRS network unless somebody chooses to gate that. So I don't actually record the WindLink network.
Okay, I mean it shows up on APRS.fi for my station.
Yeah, he probably has a tie in it. Now some stations do gate WindLink to the APRS, and I have run into a few on the markers here that do that. I don't actually do WindLink yet. It's on
Okay.
That's on my to-do list. WindLink, AIS, and a couple others.
All right, well, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
By the way, I got to ask you one thing, Dave. Your call sign, are you a broadcaster by any chance?
No. It turns out that SBE was just a luck of the draw when I got my novice license back in 1970. It was WN4SBE. Yeah.
I didn't know if you were
broadcast
president of the broadcast engineer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep. No, but I had a doctor told me, though, it stands for subacute bacterial endocarditis.
Oh, that's rough.
I've got a question for Steve. Throw a name up for you. Do you know Jeff Hochberg?
I do. He was the president of the APRS Foundation. Recently had to step down due to work requirements, but I met him through the AT Golden Packet Group, actually.
He's a good guy. He did a lecture. I met him at Dayton a couple of years ago. He gave a speech on DMR. And then do you know, since you do TV stations, I believe it is?
Yes.
Okay, well, this would be radio stations out in Colorado. I got a friend, chief engineer for several of them out there. Jack, I know him as Casey O'Brien. That's his air name, but Jack, Keovh, or something like that.
No, unfortunately, I don't do radio, but
darn, I do. Good stuff. Hey, who else has a question for Steve while we got his attention tonight? Oh, come on. Hey, Stan? No, it was Rick. We were looking today. We saw a couple stations listed. Their map symbol was wind, as in WindLink. It wasn't weather. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, they could be choosing to share their information. And by the way, anybody, Dave, you do WindLink Wednesdays? That's the WindLink equivalent of APRS Thursday. Nice.
They do that locally with the APRS group here, or the ARPSC. Rick, what is it? What's the name of the WindLink Wednesdays?
Yeah, I just got my Century certificate for WindLink Wednesdays.
Cool.
That's for 100 check-ins. Yeah.
Very nice. Come on, you guys are quiet. Other questions? Steve, you've overwhelmed them with so much good information tonight.
Or put them to sleep. I've been known to do that too.
Nah, it was fun. Last night, sorry we had some technical difficulties, but man, you were just throwing so much stuff. It was fun. Thank you for joining us last night.
Happy to. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always love talking about my APRS and my site and stuff. And again, I keep saying, for DMR, APRS over DMR, Jeremiah and his team have done a great job with videos on how to get your hotspot set up and how to get Brandmeister set up. So I throw a lot of people that way and highly recommend the work that he does.
And by the way, you should have a micro SD. You have to talk to Jeremiah about how to set up a code on your code plug and your Anytone radio and how to shut down your hotspot so you don't just power off or unplug it.
Yeah, I think my
Actually,
hotspot decided to unplug itself yesterday, partway through.
Yeah, it's actually just adding a talk group into the radio. Just grab one of your channels on your Anytone that's already set up and copy, paste it, change the name, call it shutdown, and then go to your talk group list in the code plug software and add a talk group for 99.99.99.6. And then in the Pi-Star software as well as WPSD, there is a spot that is for RF remote commands, and you just change the word false to true. Put your call sign in where it says the owner is, but make sure your call sign is capitalized, and then go down to the DMR section and uncomment or remove the pound sign off of 99.99.99.6. Hit apply changes and reboot the hotspot, and then write that to your radio after you set that talk group up on that new channel and put it in the zone, and then you can actually key your radio to shut down your Pi-Star or WPSD based hotspot just from the shutdown channel. You key it for like a second, give it a few moments, and on the new version of WPSD, it actually says shutting down, please wait, do not power off on the screen. And then when it's ready to shut down and the operating system's done, it'll literally say, okay to remove power.
I think I'm just gonna have to buy the Bridgecom hotspot. I think that's the easy thing for me to do.
I've got it set up on all my hotspots, so.
No, I have a bunch of Pi. I got a Pi-Star here, one in the RV, one in the cabin. But as I was telling Dana yesterday, I have been away for about 5 weeks, and I came home and the thing had just crashed all by itself, just died.
It always happens when we need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Overnight software update.
I'm sure
it happens when you're not looking.
James, N8TMP, you are new, and we chatted yesterday and today about that. A lot of information. What further questions do you have?
Yeah, a lot of information. I mean, this is nothing I've ever looked into, so I'll have to see if my BTEC 6x2, it does have GPS, it does have APRS on here. I have no idea how to set it up, but I'll have to look into it.
James, I can help you with that. It's look at the battery on it, and look at the radio casing, and then go look at an Anytone.
Yeah, it's the BTEC's exactly the same as the Anytone. So
James has already said that multiple times.
Same thing. Same thing.
Yes, he has. Alan, Steve, Bob, Ron. Who else we got? Mark, Andrew. Going once.
Well, now I'm going to have to buy a weather station. Any recommend?
Yeah. Well,
Steve and I were looking actually at a, what was that, Steve? What was the display? The e-ink weather display. We found one.
To build one, but I'm talking about like a weather station that measures the wind and rain and stuff.
So I can give you an answer. I can give you a couple answers to that. The first depends on how much effort, how much maintenance do you want to do, and how much tinkering do you want to do. So obviously, weather stations require, about twice a year you got to clean them. The rain gauges start growing moss and all kinds of funky stuff. So you definitely want to put it in an accessible location where you can pull it down, clean it, and put it back up. But from the tech side of things, how much effort do you want to put into it? Do you want to set and forget? Do you want to tinker? Because remember, I mentioned that there's the gentleman that has the script that monitors certain weather stations. For example, I got two of these. One's still sitting in a box here over in the corner. The Davis Vantage 2. It's, I don't know, it's about $300 for all-in-one weather station. The problem is you got to buy the data converter, the serial USB serial converter, which is like over $150. But at the same time, that is the definition of set and forget. The weather station is solar powered. I've had one up in the air for 3 years. It's never gone dead. You throw some D batteries in the controller, you run the serial cable over to your APRS node, and you're done. And if you use the microsat devices, plugs right in, and you've got a weather station on the air. And that's at a remote site. If you want something that's a little more tinkering, anything. There's people that use the AccuWeathers that decode the AccuWeather protocol over USB and run daemons on a Raspberry Pi to scrape that. So that's, if you want to save money and spend more time tinkering and building, that's another great way to do, because you can get those AccuWeathers for $100 or so.
Okay.
If you want accuracy, you got to go Davis. Davis is very well known as having high accuracy.
DABIS.
Yeah, DABIS. They have, and actually, if you go to, and it's like this, I don't have the URL. It's like CWAP or Citizens Weather Observer.net. They actually have some recommendations on weather stations that will, if you want to be part of that network, you got to use a specific one of their approved models, weather stations, anyways.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You've got somebody in the audience who lives close to you. He's up in Niagara Falls. That's Ron, AC2UL. Ron, you're new to this. Any comments or questions for Steve tonight?
No, not really, other than I thought it was extremely interesting.
So, Ron, I have a question for you. I've actually been, for the last 5 weeks, camping / living out on Grand Island. Are you part of the Barra group out there, and do you participate in Ronnie?
No, I'm not part of that group. I know what you're talking about, but no.
I hear a lot of them on the air every night. One of the busiest repeaters I've heard in a long time.
And they're very active over there.
Oh, absolutely. There's a great community out there. But anyways, yeah, welcome to APRS too. Hopefully you can start playing around. I'll be back on the island hopefully tomorrow.
Yeah. Before I ask Alan if he's got a question, you mentioned something, Steve, a month or two ago. You said if everyone on DMR set up a DigiPeater, we'd cover the US. Or something like that.
Something like, yeah, it wasn't DMR, but yeah, it wasn't even that. If 1 out of every 10 hams put up an APRS analog APRS site on 144.39, we would easily cover the country. Just one 10% of the ham community put up a site. And that's, as I said at the beginning, think of it like the cell network, right? You got a whole bunch of RF sites that are tied together by fiber connections, and you just go from one area to another, and your phone doesn't care. It gets a tower. A lot simpler for APRS, but the same principle applies. If you're cross country and beacon, you require the use of sites that people have built. So if you have no coverage in your area, especially, think of putting one up. You don't have to be in range of another site. You just need internet. And then you've created your own RF gateway, and then you're supporting those around you.
You mentioned something earlier about ham clock and your display of the APRS.to. I know Alan, VJD, has ham clock. He just picked up one, I think, on a huge display. Alan, did you have a comment or question tonight?
No, I was just listening to the presentation. Very good. Appreciate it. Picking up some information is all. I don't know if I'll get into it, APRS or not. I got some radios that'll probably do it, but I just haven't done it yet. And I messed around a little bit with it on my on the apps on the iPhone and on the Android, but that's pretty much it.
Well, anyone has a question, feel free to shoot me an email, steve@n2rwe.com. That's my personal email, or use the contact us through the site. And I'd be happy to help you out if you have any questions.
Mark and Andrew, you guys have been quiet. Any comments or questions tonight for Steve?
Andrew here, N2ZT. No, thank you. Very good. Been playing around with it. Used to use the SMS gate to text friends. They took that down, and been trying to get the other SMS going. But yeah, I've been playing around with the APRS. It's been very nice. And thank you for tonight. Really a great job, Steve. Heard you last night and tonight, and very nice. Thank you for all your work and support on this. I know how hard it is to get these things up and running and keep them running. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Mark, did you have a comment or question for Steve tonight? Maybe not. Who knows? Anyone else before we wrap this up? Tom?
You over here play. I'm over here. Am I unmuted? I'm over here playing with APRS. Sorry.
That's the goal.
I'm looking at the UP.
You see the WinLink stations and the flood up in the up by Marquette?
Well, there's a weather station on Beaver Island, which is pretty wild, in the northern part of Lake Michigan.
There's a weather station at the North Central Michigan College that I've been looking at. The weather.
So if it says EW1109, that's just part of the network of weather stations. It's not a ham.
Correct. That would be like this one right here. So that's the one you're looking at.
Yeah.
Just a second here. I got to go back to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So you can actually see. So if you look at this right here, this is the path statement. So it is using the APRS protocol, but it gated out the final destination was CWAP 5, which is the Citizens Weather Observer Network.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Or you can actually click into it and it will actually tell you right here what network it came through.
So that's all the same kind of thing, like the gliders, the airplanes, the ships. They all protocol in to the whole network. They all connect.
Exactly. The difference is these are a unique network. So CWAP is its own server cluster that's separate from APRS, but uses the APRS protocols.
Right.
And your your call sign, and your passcode will get you in any of those networks, so you can participate in those as well.
Man, I want a weather station. I have one, but it's not Davis.
You have anything, but if you want to be in the Weather Observer Network, I think they are very specific as to what. But you don't have to have it. You can do an APRS weather station.
That's right. That's right. You can just do a regular ham type of weather station, right? Not on that network.
Correct. So like my 13 site here, that is a true APRS site. It's and also DigiPeater as well. So I have the hardware that does weather station reporting and DigiPeating, and it does do gating, but there's no internet up there. So that does everything.
What radio is that then?
So that is using the microsat. The model is WX3N1, which is it's about the size of a pack of cigarettes, a little bigger than a pack of cigarettes, and that does modulating, demodulating. It's basically the modem, and then that's hooked up to a Yaesu FT2500M for the transceiver. The nice thing about those things is their appliance. The micro 3-in-1s, they have the ALCs, they've got the transformers. You just feed raw audio in and out of the radio on them, so you don't have to have anything outboard.
Can you have other so you put the weather station outdoors, obviously the sensors. Can you put a probe indoors so you can monitor, like up north, I want to monitor my cottage indoors and outdoors, and actually even the crawl space?
Well, you're actually, now you're not doing weather, you're doing telemetry. But you can do both out of the same station. It's just a different packet. So this is weather. This station also does telemetry. So in this case, you have 5 channels of analog. So I've picked for mine voltage, packet counts of received, packet counts digipeated, how many packets in versus out. So how many am I repeating? So again, those could be probes. Those, they're analog values. You can have up to 5. So you could do 5 different temperatures if you wanted to.
Man, is that cool?
It's just it's not just position reporting. You can do so many things.
Right.
Just
telemetry. Yeah.
So you could So you could take a microcontroller and add your different sensors to it, and then have your microcontroller feed. What's it going to feed all that data? I guess.
So the spec itself allows for 5 analog and 8 digital, binary values to be transmitted. You use, for example, if you use a Raspberry Pi, you've got some GPIOs available that you can record those in. So you need software like Direwolf, for example, to read the data coming in on the pins on the, or you use a microset device. So like the mic that I was just talking about, like the 3-in-1. The 3-in-1, you can actually have an IO board that you can buy from the manufacturer that gives you the five analog and 8 binary inputs and outputs. So you, because that's the other thing I forgot to mention, you can send outputs. So you can send a packet to control the device and trigger a contact closure as well. So yeah, another application that you can do.
I've been just
And the
playing with
map
micros.
symbol. Yeah,
I've been playing with micros, running motors as far as that goes, but I can see it where you could have your own little network of microcomputers and feed the modem and send the packets you want.
Exactly. I'm going to change my screen share for just a second. So what you're looking at right now is my N2RWE 13 site. It's my remote solar site. So at the top is the AZU FT2500. Then we got the weather, the 3-in-1 below it. And then essentially what we have is just a serial USB to serial converter sitting at the bottom that goes to the weather station, which is in another cabinet. And that's it. That cabinet is about, I think it's 16 inches tall and 12 inches wide. So it's a very, very small enclosure, and that's just sitting out in a pole barn.
What's the model number on that cigarette pack?
So you mean for the transceiver? This guy right here?
Yeah.
That's the WX 3-in-1. And as you can see, so just 12 volts in. So I have a probe. So this little, you see right here, that little greenly block there, that is a temperature probe that I keep in the cabinet. So I can keep an eye on my cabinet temperatures, and that reports separate from the weather. It uses one of those channels. And that's what you're seeing right here, or when you saw on the grid, the temperature of 0 degrees means it's freezing up there right now. It's 0 degrees Celsius. So my cabinet temperature is at, which is not surprising. It's an unconditioned pole barn. So that's the example of, and then off to the side here, I forgot the little wart on the sidewall. That's a 12 volt to USB power pack that runs the weather station's got the little desktop display, which receives the data from the wirelessly. So I just power that off the solar with that.
Real quick, Steve. One thing for anybody who is using DMR for their APRS, if I know I was told that TGIF doesn't allow it, but Brandmeister does. If you're on Brandmeister and you go into your self-care, that is the spot where you actually edit your APRS message. Whatever you put in on your radio code plug software will not beacon over Brandmeister. It's only in that one spot, because I just realized when I beaconed with my 168 with the fixed beacon that it said hello from Bullfrog instead of W9JEM portable. That's what my Brandmeister was set up for. So, yeah.
So, Jeremiah, so hold on. So if you want to change your symbol or whatever you have, and you have to go to Brandmeister or the Brandmeister self-care to change it there. TGIF doesn't have that capability.
Right. So it's brandmeister.network, sign in, click on your call sign, click self-care, and then that page where at the very bottom, that infamous hotspot security that you occasionally have to put back in because it gets bounced. Right above that, you'll see all the different settings. Over on the right side, there's one that says APRS text / APRS. Let me look here. I think I still have the window open. No, I don't. I closed it and got out of there. Okay. It says APRS text or APRS to call, I think. And that's where you actually put in your message that you want to beacon when your radio beacons over the DMR network on Brandmeister on talk group 310999. And that is a private call, not a group call.
Interesting. Mark, you're unmuted. Did you have a question? You don't need to do anything. Just talk in your microphone. not muted, but I don't hear anything.
Looks like
Dana-
James's
All right.
cat's trying to get in on the APRS action.
Dana, look in the chat. I think he said he couldn't talk because he didn't know where the
Oh, hit your
push to talk
space bar.
button.
I think
Yeah.
it's your hold your space bar down. Because I saw he was doing something earlier. I saw it popped up that his mic was on. Yes. We can hear you, Mark. Oh, he's on a phone. Zoom on the phone. The Zoom app. I don't do that. I love computers. Oh well. We lost him. Any other questions you guys have? Steve has been nice enough to stay longer than normal. Anything else? Comments, questions?
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you
Steve.
very much, Steve, for all the great information on APRS. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Very super. Just
I'd like to say thank you too. You've at least given us a lot to think about. I'm completely overwhelmed, and you have to go back and listen to it.
Well, I'm glad I could be here. Thank you for having me. And again, any questions, Steve at N2RWE.com. Happy to talk to all of you.
And Steve, we
That's
will
great.
post this on our YouTube channel, DMR Tech Net TV, as well as on our website. And we'll also do the Zoom does an AI transcription. I have to go and edit it. It thinks I'm a female and gets some things wrong. So I have to fix that, but we'll get that up. I'll send you the links. I appreciate it so much, as well as the rest of the DMR Tech Net team and everyone else who joined us tonight. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. 73s, everybody.
73s from DMR Tech Net TV. Let me hit the,
73.